tally in Georgia at this point has huge implications for the entire country. We will get it right, and we will defend the integrity of our elections.
We're anticipating and hoping that with the number of ballots that we see now, we should hopefully be ready to have a final count on the majority of mail ballots by Sunday at some time.
So while some, including the president, continue to spew baseless claims of fraud, claims for which his team has not produced one iota of evidence, what we have seen here in Philadelphia is democracy, pure and simple.
Those were officials in key swing states, Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, today urging the public to trust the slow process of counting ballots in their states. As Biden inches closer to a presidential win, the question remains, would Trump actually concede? And when will he know for sure who the next, and when will we know, rather, who the next president will be? Our U.S. campaign panel has been with us through this wild ride of a campaign, and they're back today. Republican strategist Adam Goodman is here, and Democratic strategist Paul Thornell is here as well. Welcome, gentlemen. Happy Friday. You know, this is one of the longest election nights in history. It's lasting 3 days. But you heard those officials, Paul Thornell. I'm wondering if, after what the president said yesterday, is there seriously a mistrust in your system, in your electoral system, in the vote counting, in what's going on now?
Right. Well, thank you for having me. Well, I guess what I would say is first that this is about to be a pretty historic moment where only the fourth time in our history that an incumbent president has been defeated. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are about to get the most votes ever in a U.S. election. And certainly having a woman elected vice president, African-American as vice president, is such a significant piece of this to call out that I think the history will reflect that significance when we look back on this. And hopefully will not be sullied by what we heard from the president last night. There's no doubt that the way that he sullied the office and the democratic process by suggesting that the mere counting of votes itself was somehow wrong. There's no proof whatsoever of fraud. And the fact is, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you were elected or reelected to your office on Tuesday, you should be equally offended by what he said, because his name is not on a different ballot from the Senate Republicans and from the House Republicans and from the mayors and governors and state legislatures who are also Republicans. They're all the same. So if for some reason he thinks he has somehow been wronged, then, you know, the same has to be true for all the people who are reelected. And I think it could have an effect because he has followers that listen to his words and take them as the gospel.
Yeah, well, you know, that's funny. That's a question I want to ask Alan Goodman. So when Trump makes these you know, baseless claims about mass voter fraud, is he not delegitimizing the wins of his Republican colleagues in the House and in the Senate?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that the president is using the word fraud. Let me go back for a second. I was right in the middle of the 2000 Florida recount, where 6 million Florida voters cast ballots. It was decided by 537 votes, adjudicated ultimately by the Supreme Court of the United States. And the truth of the matter is, Joyce, that we will never know to this day who really won, because technology is not good enough, was not good enough then, it isn't good enough now, in a race that close to determine winner versus loser with 100% certainty. What the president should have said, instead of using the word fraud, is, and this is also what the Democrats have been saying, frankly, is we want to make sure that every legal vote is counted. We want to make sure, he wants to make sure, Republicans want to make sure that votes that were cast are legal and are properly counted.
But with all due respect, sir, he said that the votes that were his votes were legal, the votes that were not for him were illegal. I mean, he went even further than that.
Joyce, I'm not defending that. Let me be clear. I'm not defending some of the rhetoric that the president has used in the last 48 hours. What I'm trying to tell you is it is a normal part of the process when you have a close election that there are questions raised, election challenges, lawsuits filed. That's not an abnormal thing. And if you really want to know what happened, and if there is a lawsuit filed, say in the state of Pennsylvania, if the lawsuit's filed, if you've done nothing wrong, there's nothing to hide, get it all out there and reinforce democracy. And let me say one more thing, Joyce, which was really to your first question to Paul. Going into this election, 3 out of 10 Americans in a lot of public polls did not trust that the final count was really the final count. It's a terrible reflection of, I think, of our lack of faith in democracy. I think the president did not do us any favors in some of the things he's done in the last couple of days in questioning the validity of the democratic process. But the fact remains there's still an uncertainty there. And if we want to get it right, we're taking these extra days to get it right, which I really applaud, which is new for us, by the way. We're so impatient. What do you mean it's not over an election night? We want to make sure at the end of it all, as best we can, that we did get the counts right, that the person elected president is a rightful person who elected president. Clearly, everything is favoring at this point Joe Biden. And if he is the one that has the most number of legally counted votes in the appropriate number of electoral votes, he should be the president of the United States. And this country, whether they voted for him or not, should rally behind that.
But Paul Thornell, I want to ask you, because our colleague Richard Madden is in Delaware right now, and they're preparing for a party. There's going to be fireworks. There's going to be speeches. So he says he wants to wait for the votes to be counted, but they're going to throw sort of a party, and there's really a nice air of victory over there. So, I mean, what is it? Is he going to wait, or is he going to have sort of a little victory party?
Well, I think we'll hear from him. He has said that, we know from the campaign that he'll be speaking tonight. I think more importantly, whatever he says is going to be more stately than what we heard from the president last night. When Kamala Harris joins him in the White House formally on January 20th, they're going to have to begin the process, not just of putting an administration in place and all the personnel stuff, but really of dealing with the wreckage that has been a hallmark of Trump's presidency, whether it has to do with the COVID pandemic or on the world stage or just the integrity of the office. And I think some of the facts that you were citing related to the lack of confidence in the process, part of that is because the president himself was calling into question. Look, his supporters voted more on the day of the election, and those votes generally were counted first because he told them not to vote by mail. Biden's supporters generally voted early, either by mail or they got in line and voted in person earlier, and those counted after. We're having something called a pandemic here, as we all know. That changed the rules for how this election was going to work, but it did not change anything about the legitimacy, and the president is trying to call that into question.
Adam Goodman, I only have 30 seconds left, but I want to ask you this. I mean, we know that politics is a blood sport, leadership races, primaries, elections, but in this case, blood may be shed. People fear that there will be violence quickly. Do you believe that there will be violence?
I don't. I think this country is resilient. I think we're gonna power through. We're going to get behind whoever wins this election. And by the way, it wasn't just a presidential win for the Democrats. The Republicans gained seats in the House and held on to the Senate. I think America actually will win ultimately from this election, and we will pull together.
Gentlemen, that's unfortunately all the time we have left, but I get the sense that we'll still be talking next Friday. So thank you very much, Adam Goodman, Paul Thornell. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
You too.